Hello all, welcome to eLagaan Whiteboard Friday. So today we are going to discuss about internal policies and practices. So what are internal policies and practices? Basically, it could be, there are varieties of policies that runs a company. Company does not have a brain of its own. So any operation that happens within a company has to be driven by a policy. So it is commonly said a company without policy collapses soon. And that's the reality, because if you do not have written policies for various stuff, then there is too much of dependencies on the founders or the main decision makers. So now due diligence of internal policies and practices. What does this involve, and why is it important? So, when a due diligence is carried out, they would like to understand how the company is functioning and what kind of internal controls or policies are in place. And understanding of these policies gives them a better comfort as to, okay, there is certain level of accuracy that is expected based on these policies. So there could be various types of policies, and the most common ones are like could be divided broadly into like HR policies. This would involve your policies on employees, your handbook, employee handbooks, leave policies, your travel policies, expense reimbursement policies, and all these would be covered. Your let's say maternity benefit policies, prevention of sexual harassment, and all these policies would be covered under that. The second type of policies that would be normally be there in a company is all everything relating to data and privacy. So there are various requirements like terms of use, terms of services, then data privacy policy, and also if you are dealing with European customers, then GDPR requirements. So these form a very critical part in the HR and the data privacy policies. These form the core because these could have far-reaching impacts. And the third most important would be all your accounting policies, like who are authorized to do certain transactions, who has the authority to approve certain transactions, and various things like what a clerk, accounting clerk can do, what an external agency that has been appointed can do. All these would be defined by your policies. Now, why is it so important in to see internal policies and practices in due diligence? So, as I said earlier, it gives the person carrying out the due diligence a certain level of comfort. Okay, so when I start with a blank slate, I know I'm expecting a certain standards based on my review of policies and practices of the company. So I now have expectations set, and with that mindset, I can, as a due diligence, so we can always frame those whatever steps we have to do accordingly. And the more stringent the policies are, the better comfort it gives, because there are few chances of loose points or the red flags. So the more the internal controls are in the policies, the better it is. So what are the key requirements? So the key requirements would be sharing your all your policies in the company with the due diligence team, and it would include also the practices that may not be written, but it is commonly followed to a company wide. So you would have to think about those things, which everything might not be in black and white. So whatever is common practice, you would put it and share it with them, so they understand the company wide practices much better. And there could be a lot of changes in these policies, so always it is advisable that these policies have a version control or the date of updation, so that at a different point in time, what was the policy, the transaction that is being reviewed can be checked according to the policy prevailing then, and not with the current policy, which would have a lot of differences. So it is very important that you ensure whenever there are policies maintained, you always ensure that dates of updation and versions are maintained properly, to ensure that there's no confusion over at what time what was the policy. So what are the tips to do a proper to for due diligence on internal policies and practices? So tip number one, as I said earlier, that maintain proper versions and try to keep all the practices and the common policies of a company in return, so that there's no room for doubt or subjectivity at all. And as far as possible, it is always suggested to have at least all the processes identified, where we call it significant class of transactions. So you identify the significant class of transactions in the company, and for each of those transactions you have at least one or two policies defining all the set of activities undertaken in those transactions. So this would not only help the founders to run the company in auto mode, but it would also ensure regulators, due diligence teams, and even if there are any other audits being carried out, to ensure all the documents and stuff can be smoothen out, and there's no dependency on anyone as such. And the tip number two would be to always ensure that HR policies are well drafted with no room for any subjectivity at all, because these are highly sensitive. And it is commonly noticed in startups that the leave policies frequently change. Every 3 months, there's a new concept, a new idea flowing that we should do our leaves. Maybe let's say sometimes you show on leaves and medical leaves, and suddenly you say no, let us club it and show it as combined leaves, and so on. So it is always advisable that not to change these policies frequently and keep everything written and clear. And the changes should be very minimum and at least at a longer period of time. So that's all on the due diligence on of internal policies and practices. Um, Let us know if you have any questions. You can write to us at hello@eLagaan.com, and do check out our website for open source documents. Thank you.